So we are going to talk about Lightning Locker and Lightning Web Security. So first, a very quick introduction about myself. So my name is Fabien Taillon. I'm a 7-time Salesforce MVP. I'm also CTO at Texay, which is a French consulting company. I'm also Paris Developer Group leader with Thomas that is in the front row right here. And I'm part of the French Strat Dreaming team. So French Strat Dreaming is this kind of event, but happening in Paris. December 1st, tickets are still on sale, so you can join. And you have my Twitter account link to the blog if you want to follow me, ask questions later. I'm available on Twitter. So, first we are going to talk about why Lightning Locker or Lightning Web Security before talking about the difference between them. Why do we need this kind of security? So this started with Lightning Experience. Previously you had nothing. Why? So let's have a look what we have at Classic time. So when we had Salesforce Classic only, all UI developments, so something that you will develop, not Salesforce, your own custom development, would be done via Visualforce. What does that mean? Visualforce actually, if you remember from Classic time, they were stored inside an iframe. So you had your Salesforce domain and your Visualforce domain, two separate URLs, bring together via iframe. So this was guaranteeing security, because as these two iframes are separate domain, you can't interact between them directly, so security is guaranteed just by that. So it's basic and standard web stuff, so nothing to do here. It's just totally separated between your custom Visualforce development and Salesforce domain. So you could do whatever you like in the iframe. You won't be able to break Salesforce because it's totally separate, two separate websites. So that was easy. So nothing to do. But at Lightning time, things change. The main difference between Lightning and Classic is that previously, as you saw, all custom development were done through iframe. Now all the customization are done on the exact same page. So if you inspect the code of the page, everything is here at the same place, which is cool because with iframe sometimes it doesn't dimension is not set correctly, so you have a white space or inner scrolling, stuff like that. It's not very nice. By having everything inside the same HTML page, the page is it's much easier to handle all this UI thing because it's in the same page. But on the other way around, Lightning components that are, as you can see, I have a small example with one Lightning page with some Salesforce component I created myself and third-party components. They are all on the same page. The thing is that as it's the same domain, so you see there is only lightning.force.com, whereas previously you had two URLs. That means that in a security point of view regarding the browser, for him it's the same page, so he doesn't really care whereas it's your code or code from an app exchange or something you downloaded on the internet. For the browser, it's a one-wall page that can access everything because it's like home. So we can access DOM, APIs, cookies, everything. So let's say so here, let's take the example again. Let's say you have 3 Salesforce components on your page. Imagine it's like a page in a builder, for instance. You drag and drop it 3 Salesforce components, 2 components you wrote yourself, and 1 third-party component. The issue is that as it's the same page, every component can communicate with each other and do whatever it wants. But if you want to steal information from the other namespace, even it would work actually, and that's not cool. You see, it's a cookie. So that's the thing. The thing is that as with Lightning, everything is in the same page. All the basic and standard security from the browser doesn't work anymore because it considers all components to be part of the same page. So if you download or install any third-party component that hasn't gone through the security review of Salesforce, happen. It could steal your cookie, or it could be dangerous, actually. So what has done Salesforce to prevent this kind of issues? So there are two, at least in theory, both Lightning Locker and Lightning Web Security share the same concept. So what's the idea? It's the idea to have, for each namespace, a separate locker, hence Lightning Locker at the time. So it's really like the small box you see at the top, at the bottom right, whereas every namespace will be separated and will only have access to the information of your own namespace. So all components will be isolated. And beside that, it also prevents you from accessing APIs from Salesforce that are not documented, that you could use, but that Salesforce can change anytime and it could break at any time. So it's both about security, preventing components between namespace, preventing components to access data from other namespace components, and also to access Salesforce internal APIs. It also enables a few other stuff like JavaScript street mode, CSP. So CSP is basically a way to prevent a component to access a resource outside of Salesforce without you whitelisting it first. And also access global variable, like so you can access stuff inside your namespace, but you won't be able to access something that is on top of the page where you could access to stuff you shouldn't access to, or break stuff or whatever. So first I will talk about Lightning Locker, how does it work, and later I will switch to Lightning Web Security. So how does Lightning Locker works? So it makes use of a JavaScript proxy. And the idea is, so if you're on a regular HTML page, you will have access to elements like window, document, element, etc. And the idea behind that is that your component won't have access to these global variables, but Lightning Locker will give you access to like a subset of these variables. So you won't have window, you will have a secure window, secure document, secure element, etc. And well, everything is documented right here. And I will just show you in a quick demo how it's works. So I have some code here. Maybe it's a little bit slow. Is it? Can you see something or not? Maybe this was better. Can you still read? Okay, good. So it's just, it's really not a Lightning Locker. It's like so Lightning Locker should be like, I don't know, thousands of lines of code to make it work. You have something that is 10 lines of code, so obviously it's just a way to explain how it works, but that's much, much simplified. So what is the idea? The idea is in my, so I will just show you before so we'll understand. Okay. The idea is to simulate two components, so on the left and on the right, that would be like in two separate namespaces. Well, if I look at my HTML page, it's just the same page and everything is at the same place. There is nothing that really separates one component to the other. So what can be done to prevent one component to access the other? So I have, okay, so I created like a sort of secure document element that will override the right document. There is a real document element. And what I do is there. So this element, so I have a method that is called getElement that I will use later. And here what I do is instead of using, I will create a proxy and I will say, okay, now document is not anymore windows.document, it's secure document. So this is fully standard JavaScript, nothing specific to Salesforce. So it's really like every time the standard getElement method will be used my own method instead of the standard one. And this is what I will do here. I will just do something like document.getElement by type name and see what's happening or not. And this method, getElements by type name, in my own secure document, which is sort of an override of document, I just override it also. I said, okay, if on document, which is now secure document in my example, you want to access getElement by type name, don't use the standard one, use mine. And here I do something very basic, which is if the namespace is C, it's okay, you can access it. Otherwise, prevent access to the element. And the element is basically what the source has done, it's just the first letter of the component. So here in the HTML, you have C my element, and here I have Lightning my element, which sort of will simulate a Salesforce namespace. So let's have a look. So you have two buttons. I will click on the button that will call my own namespace. So I will try to get the element that is here. And when I click, when the JavaScript is executing document.getElement by type name, it will go through my code that with proxy I overrided the document element, see it's my own namespace, and say, okay, you can access it, and it will call the same method, the real method from the DOM API to get my elements, and I can access it. I can see it's a load namespace, and I can get the element. As the other way around, I will try to get the Lightning namespace. I click on it, and I see it's telling me unallowed namespace, and I get undefined. So from my JavaScript, I'm now unable to access the component from the other namespace, which is an abstraction, actually, because if you look at the HTML code, it's just a text that starts the HTML component. So that's really basically what's happening here. Showing the code again. It's just this. Calling getElements with the name of the element C or Lightning one. It will go through the code and call getElements. GetElements is overriding the standard document element with my own. And my own will just check. If it's C, it will let pass, otherwise it won't. So it's a very novel simplification of what Lightning Logger is doing. But that's actually the core concept of Lightning Logger. Everything will be passed through this component that will let you access or not to stuff you should have access or shouldn't have access. So it works. So if you just look at security, Lightning Logger works. But what are the issues with Lightning Logger? Why do we need a replacement for it? Well, the issue is that when you look at Lightning Logger, you saw my code, which is again oversimplified, but it's really like I will decide what I will let pass or not pass. That means that when you get access to new API from a standard DOM API, like I don't know, or you have a way to accept the clipboard or barcode detector or stuff like that. If Salesforce don't implement a way to let it pass or not pass, by default you won't have access. That means that if a new API is coming today and that Salesforce didn't took the time in its release to update Lightning Logger to let you access Windows or clipboard, you won't have access to it. That means that it's secure, but the other way around, it means that you may be restricted to use API that are not unsecure at all. Just Salesforce didn't took the time to update Lightning Logger to make it available for you. Plus, if you use third-party libraries, they may use APIs, and maybe Lightning Logger will break these third-party libraries, which make you, when you try to use a third-party library, you won't be able to use it, whereas it would work on any other tech. So just to show you the documentation. Okay, if I was connected to the network, it would be better, right? Yeah, what? J'ai pas compris. demo effect, right? Ah ouais, ok. Ah oui, d'accord, je crois ce que tu disais. Mais c'était quand même pas ça. J'avais 2 bugs. Non. I should have opened it before, right? Anyway, we'll move on and we'll come back later. Well, what I want to point out is that everything is documented, so you can see which API you have access to or not access to. But the issue is what? The issue is that it's a security wrapper around something that is standard, which means that it's something that will execute additionally to the code that should just behave and run without any other. It's just an additional cost actually, just to run this security thing. So of course it will be slower. And there are real impacts. So you can see, I'll give you the link. There is a tool on Salesforce developer website where you can test a feature and try with Locker and without Locker. And as you can see in some examples, if you compare, it's like up to 10 times slower, depending on sometimes. So if you have, I don't know, a big code that would take 1 second to load, it will take 10 seconds. So that's huge. Also, even though now I hope no one is using IE anymore. It's not supported on proxy. Is not supported on IE, which means that if you run Internet Explorer, we'll also have additional code that will simulate proxy, which will be even slower on IE. So please don't do. So what about Lightning Web Security? It's completely different. It's based on something that is called Shadow Realm. It's a web standard. And so it doesn't override it doesn't override the elements that are like document, window, etc. It will just create a new global scope, and you will be able to create several scopes depending on what you want to run, and run code in one scope or in another, in a realm actually. And it will use distortion. It's a little bit different. So it's the other way around from Locker. Locker would be like you have access to nothing, and maybe we will override stuff to let you access this API. LWS is the other way around. It's like you have access to everything, and there are a few things where we will distort the standard API to prevent you to access a few methods maybe. So same thing. There is a link here. So did it work? Yeah, this one worked. I will open this one without the error. Thanks, Vincent. So just to let you compare, when I look at Locker API viewer, I can see, let's say on secure window, you see everything that is red is not supported. So you have a lot of things that won't work. And if it's supported, it will be green. If I go to LWS distortion viewer, it's the opposite. You can see what is distorted. So it won't list you everything. It is just list you what has been changed compared to the standard web API. So if you don't see something in Locker API viewer, it's just not supported. If you don't see it here, that's pretty good news. That means it hasn't been distorted. So the API is just available and works as usual. And if not, it's described here exactly what is the change. So for instance, there is one that explains that you can't access, you can't use fetch if the URL start with something slash, I don't remember the name, it's the URL of Salesforce API, standard API that you can't call. And it will just prevent you from accessing this URL if you don't, from your own component, because it's a private Salesforce API. So this is the way. I don't have a demo for this one. It's pretty new. It just shipped right now in Safari. It's not yet available in all browsers, but the goal is to use it as soon as it's shipped in all browsers. But the idea is really something like this. You can create a shadow realm, execute some JavaScript in this realm, create a second one, for instance, and each JavaScript will have its own local variable and global variable. So they will sort of execute in a separate context. And it's not like Lightning Locker, where it's like an overhead and something created from scratch with proxy, but proxy wasn't aimed to have like so many proxy objects on a page, so that makes it very slow. This is really standard, so this is like executed by the browser, so there's it's no trick or whatever. It's really 100% standard. So being it standard, of course, it's faster. It allows you also to use components between namespace, which is pretty cool because previously you couldn't add into your own component a component from an app exchange. Yeah, LWCs. Because I forgot Aura still exists actually, but you're right. So it distorts a few APIs, so that means that most all of them are available, and it's really standard. So that means also that if, like let's say Chrome implements Shadow Realm and improve the performance, Salesforce will benefit from it. So for now, it's only GA for LWC, not Aura components. You have to activate it. It starts to be activated for new orgs. It's not that clear if it's really activated right now or not, but it's supposed to be the future. So in the future, it will be activated for all your orgs. For now, you need to test it if you have both LWC and Aura. And if you have only Aura, the recommendation is not to activate it. And there are still use cases where, well, I started a project with LWC only. I was like, okay, cool, I will activate it, no problem. And then I was like, oh yeah, but I still have to use Aura from time to time because there's some stuff that are not supported by LWC. And then I was like, whoa, will I break my code? Because obviously I was using new API that were not supported with Lightning Locker, so I couldn't go back. So hopefully for me it works, but it's something you still need to consider if you want to activate it today in a production environment. And as it's not supported by all browsers, today it's still a polyfill, so code that simulates Shadow Realm. But the idea is once it's available everywhere, Salesforce should switch to the real Shadow Realm. So I have lots of links for you, mainly when I will share the slides. And that's it. I don't think I have much time for questions, but if you want to ask me a question, I will be available here. Moi, j'ai deux nouvelles. La première, c'est que j'ai quand même le temps pour les questions. Et la deuxième, c'est que j'ai des casquettes à distribuer à ceux qui posent des questions. I should say it in English, yeah. I have time for questions, finally. And if you ask questions, you get a cap. Can I ask one to myself? So Salesforce developers. It's unusual to have Salesforce developer goodies, so go for it, guys. I don't know if you have a second mic. Doesn't work? Okay, doesn't work. Tell your question, I will repeat.
Can Lightning Web Security be turned off after it has been turned on?
That's a very good question that deserves a cap, of course. And the answer is yes, hopefully. Any other question?
My question is, when it's enabled, does it enable only in Salesforce Lightning, also in the community part?
So I think, I'm not sure. Because I thought it wasn't available in community, but at Dreamforce they said the opposite, and I didn't check which is true. So yeah, answer is not yet in community.
Hi. How many times we have to be compatible with Lightning Web Security?
I think that I don't know because I'm not working for Salesforce, so I can't say anything. But I would say that I think the roadmap is to activate it like it's supposed to be GA for Aura at some point. The issue today is that it's not supported for Aura. At least not supported, it's just not tested. So as I said, I used it, it was working, it was fine. But the idea is to get it GA for Aura 2, and at some point it should be activated for everyone, which means that it should just work for your own components. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't work, but the idea is that it should. It doesn't work for Aura components, or? Okay. Well, I don't know, but at least if you have issue, you should go to the Trailblazer community group to make sure they're aware about it. Otherwise, they won't fix it.
Hey, does it affect the implementation of Lightning Web Components for Salesforce Mobile?
For Salesforce Mobile, well, I don't know if it's really linked to mobile or not mobile. It's more about which API you are using, like DOM APIs or whatever. So if you use an API that isn't supported, it won't work either on mobile or even specific API for mobile, for instance. If it's not supported, it won't work. But yeah, does it answer your question?
Just my experience is saying that things on Salesforce Mobile are quite unexpected sometimes. So I fully agree with what you say. I'm just skeptical that it's true.
Well, I guess we need. If you find any issue, you need to complain about it. But so I saw I had no question, and now there are caps. There are a lot.
My question is as follows. You have just said that you enable that Lightning Web Security is not supported in all browsers. So I want to ask if you're an org.
So I said it incorrectly. It's supported in all browser, in every browser, except that today. So what is used behind the scene, which is Shadow Realm, which is a standard browser feature, this is not yet implemented in all browser. So until it is there, because it's a standard feature, so it will get there at some point. Today, Salesforce has a custom JavaScript that is emulating how Shadow Realm will work. And as soon as it's supported by all browsers, they will remove this code and switch to the real implementation. But today, you don't really care. For you, you just use LWS. It works everywhere. And someday, Salesforce will just remove its polyfill, and it will work even faster for you without even you knowing it. Does it answer your question?
Okay. In some use cases, so in LWC, we have to read the cookies, which are set from another website. And with the distortion, so reading the cookies is only what is set by the LWC or the same namespace. Is there any way so we can read other cookies? So for example, so when we enter the website of the company, there are some cookies are set, and when we enter when we log in the community of the company, as in the experience cloud, so we need to read that cookie which is set by the other website. So how we can disable that to read that cookie?
I don't know. No, I don't know, because the aim of this is to prevent you from doing that. So I don't know if there is a way to whitelist this kind of stuff. Do you know, Philippe? Si on veut vraiment dans un cas pouvoir accéder, j'ai une sorte de whitelist qui dit j'ai quand même le droit d'accéder aux cookies de ce site et de...
Nope.
Je pense pas qu'on puisse.
No, there's no whitelisting, no.
So the answer is no, but you could do it maybe with like a single sign-on, for instance, that would replace it if it's two domain. I don't know if it's... If you have like a single sign-on between the two domains, for instance, you get automatically logged in. You won't be able to read cookie, but let's say your website is an identity provider for Salesforce. If you go log into your website and then navigate to Salesforce, you will get automatically logged in. That's not really the same tech at all as what you said, but still it would work. But I don't think there is any way to do what you want, because as I said, it's exactly what Salesforce is trying to prevent.
With the specific front-end framework, does it affect the functioning of the Lightning Web Security? Like there is a specific way to work with it, or just the same way as you showed us?
Well, the idea, I don't say it works for everything, but the idea is exactly that. Is today with Locker, use a library, it may not work because it's very specific. The idea with Lightning Web Security is it's supposed to be much easier to use third-party libraries because it will be 100% standard stuff. And you will have access to all APIs and everything, except if that library is using something that is prevented by AWS, which is considered by Salesforce by being a security issue. But otherwise, theory is that you should have much more compatible third-party libraries with AWS than with Locker. And I think that the team wants to know if you find a library that doesn't work. So you need to, if you find something that doesn't work, tell them, because otherwise they won't know and they will never fix it.
So I just wanted to know if you kind of make a kind of benchmark before and after, like between Locker and Lightning Web Security, to see, like, in terms of speed, the benefits of using it. Because like you are using standard web like APIs, etc. But did you like make any kind of benchmark to see, like, if without, and even if I'm using a standard API, I'm still losing something in terms of speed?
Well, I would say that it has to be faster, because I don't think there is any tool today to, like, you can test with or without Locker, for instance, but I don't think you can really test with Locker and with AWS and see which one is faster. But it would depend also if it's like an API. If you go through Locker, 100% of the API are going through Locker. So 100% of the API are slower. With AWS, some of them are going through directly. So it should be faster anyway. But I don't think there is a tool to do that, but you can build it. Locker is blocking everything. AWS is only changing a few methods. So by default, you have access to nothing. By default, you have access to everything. We still have caps. No? Ah. Which is why there is no more question, right? Okay. Well, thank you very much.